This one's for my slavery was different in the Old Testament friends. If by different you mean pretty much exactly the same, then yeah, you got it. Welcome back to Pesky Passages, where your favorite doctrines face serious challenges and we learn to ask better questions along the way. If you mostly hear the Bible from people who are trying to defend it, there's a good chance that this verse didn't make the cut. And for good reason, too. It's hard to hear, and even harder to defend. Leviticus 25:44 through 46 reads, "As for the male and female slaves whom you may have, it is from the nations around you that you may acquire male and female slaves. You may also acquire them from among the aliens residing with you, and from their families that are with you, who have been born in your land, and they may be your property. You may keep them as possession for your children after you, for them to inherit as property. These you may treat as slaves, but as for your fellow Israelites, no one shall rule over the other with harshness." So let's be clear about what Leviticus is actually saying and what it's not. Some Israelites did experience indentured servitude, which was temporary debt slavery with legal protections in place and release after 6 years or in the year of Jubilee. But Leviticus 25 explicitly excludes foreigners from this system. Foreigners and their children could be bought, owned, and passed down as permanent property. That is not indentured labor. That's chattel slavery, where people are treated as inherited goods. They had no release date, no built-in freedom, and even their children were property of the master. Apologists sometimes try to soften this by saying that it wasn't racial or it wasn't as cruel. But cruelty was never the standard. Ownership is. If someone can be beaten and sold and traded like livestock, the issue was never about the color of your skin or whether or not you were treated well. The issue is that you could be owned. And this law code wasn't even a significant improvement from the nations around it. Some were better, some were worse. In some cases, like in certain Mesopotamian laws, a slave only had to work for 3 years to buy their freedom, as compared to 6 years for Israelites. But by and large, the structures were functionally the same. Ownership, hierarchy, inequality, baked right into the law. The point is, this law appears in the Bible as divinely sanctioned. And for many modern readers, that's where the tension begins. This isn't God reluctantly allowing slavery because the culture was already doing it. This is God drawing boundaries, naming who can be enslaved and how long they can be kept. The law doesn't just permit it, it endorses it. The slaves that you may have were foreigners who could be bought, inherited, and passed down to your children forever. This is generational slavery, codified, theologized, with God's stamp of approval. And nowhere else in the Bible is this ever challenged or overturned. Not in the cries of the prophets, not in the teachings of Jesus, not in the letters of Paul. It's simply treated as normal, as righteous, as just the way things are. As always, you do not have to agree with me. But when you're confronted with new information, you do have to wrestle with it. So, if slavery is not only endorsed, but also never condemned, what kind of moral vision is being passed down? Are we allowed to question these perceived laws from God? Or are we forced to concede that slavery was, and potentially still is, acceptable? Should divine authority ever be used to justify injustice? If our responsibility to justice and our allegiance to the Bible point in opposite directions, which one do we follow? Just to be clear, slavery is an atrocity, and no sacred text, no matter how ancient or revered, should ever be used to justify it. If the Bible has been used to defend injustice, it is because we have refused to confront what is actually in it. We have to stop explaining away the darkest parts of Scripture, because that is exactly what keeps perpetuating harm. But naming the problem isn't the same as losing faith. Sometimes it's how faith finally starts to grow up.